So, welcome everyone to Tarkpead taskus podcast. If you are wondering why we are talking in English today, that's pretty amazing that actually we do speak in English. But today we are hosting a world citizen who was born in Belgium. And he's a man on the mission to make the world a better place for all of us. He's a true visionary, and especially in terms of ecological and social sustainability. And if you Google him, then you will find out that Huffington Post has quoted that you or he is the Steve Jobs of sustainability.
They have made other errors.
He has established multiple companies around the world. He has published over 20 books and written hundreds of fables to bring kids closer to the science and nature. And most importantly, he's a husband and a father.
Of 6 kids.
Of 6?
6.
Because I actually had some trouble figuring out the correct number, because some articles mentioned that it's 5.
Yeah, but that article is then probably 5 years old, because I had my latest baby was 5 years ago. So anyway, but it's 6. The 6 that I know of.
As we speak, 6. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gunter Pauli.
Thank you.
So, to be honest, we really appreciate you taking that time to talk to us, share your thoughts. Just to, get this ball rolling, do you actually have, or do you imagine what Tarkpead taskus could mean in Estonian language?
Absolutely no idea. I know you're doing podcasts and you're, basically filling up YouTube and iPhone and iTunes. So, I mean, that I do know. And it's always nice to be able to have a conversation. I don't know if you've ever seen my interview in Intervjuu in France, where you have one of the wildest conversations where you can go into any direction. And I think it's a pity that too much journalism is too formal and too structured. We need to be able to have not just a dialogue. We need to be able to fight with words. We need to be able to get the words rolling. And that is what inspires people, because the mind of the person who's listening goes fast, and we're talking way too slow most of the time.
Not him, by the way.
Well, in Estonian, I'm pretty fast, yeah. True, that is true.
So I'm getting an advantage that it's in English?
Yeah, I think so, a little bit. But to answer the question, Tarkpead taskus in a direct translation is smart heads in a pocket.
Okay.
So smart people in your pocket, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, so that being said, the goal of our podcast show is pretty simple. We just want to talk to smart people all around the world. And to be honest, as I said in the introduction, you are the first, let's say, not Estonian in our show. So that is definitely a privilege for us. And I hope it's going to be exactly what you said, a genuine conversation. And we need to figure out what words to use here. So let's
go.
Let's get the ball rolling. As we speak here today in Lilleoru, to be honest, for me, it's pretty fascinating place. When I heard about it, I had no idea what it is or what it's all about.
So first time you're here?
First time for me being here, yeah. And for you, it's not the first time, right?
No, I was here already 2 times before.
So, and as we talk about this time or present time, you have been here for 2 days now, talking to teachers.
I'm not talking to teachers. I mean, talking to teachers is a very boring job. I mean, who wants to sit down and talk to teachers? You don't want to do that. I'm here to really inspire the teachers so that they will transform the educational system of Estonia. I mean, you are too stuck with old ideas on education. You're imitating too much the Americans and the Germans and the Finns. And it's about time you have your own genuine system of education, which will bring the best out of the kids, for the best of your country. Because too many Estonians are leaving the country. They think there's not enough to do here. And that has to be nipped at its roots, and that means it has to be tackled from the day that the kids start at school. Otherwise, we better all start singing together with Pink Floyd, Roger Waters. I don't want no education, I don't want no mind control. You know, and this is the problem you're having. Your education is too much mind control.
Wow.
I actually know exactly what you mean. I'm more of a hands-on learner. I do everything from study through practicality, basically. I have to put it into practice in order to learn. But our school system is basically on fact-based. You have to
it's
learn
memorizing
facts.
still. It's still memorizing.
Yeah.
It's still passing exams. You have to ban exams. Ban exams or ban the schools. You know, it's either one or the other. And I think it's very important that the opportunity I've been giving here is to sit down with 120 teachers. You know, people who are in charge of schools, people who work with government, people who are concerned and really keen to do it better. But as always, you're stuck in a corset, this straitjacket that doesn't allow you to get out. So you need to be able to listen, to be inspired, to view concrete personal experience that will confirm to you that, oh my God, it can be done totally different. And practical. And tomorrow. You know, not totally different so that within 20 years we'll have a new generation of Estonians. That doesn't work. We need to have a system whereby the young people are so capable and so self-assured that they will tell their parents how the parents have to change now. And if you don't have that, you're stuck in a slow transformation process that will turn you over the years into very good Americans or American likes or very good German likes. And that's not the purpose of society. Society is to celebrate diversity, and therefore you have to identify who you are, what you can do, and how you can inspire the young generation to do much better than the parents ever imagined.
But how do you push this transition, or how do you like imagine, or how do you kind of make this even possible that this change actually manifests into real life? Because when I think about change, a really quick example, there's a cool startup here in Tallinn. Basically what they do, they're called Upsteam. What they do is that they are a mobile unit for car washing, right? So I use my app, they come and wash my car, they only spend 1 liter of water and they're gone. And at the same time, when they're washing my car, I can do my work, focus on other things, right? And when they first launched, it was almost 2 years ago, they still haven't kind of got this, mass traction. And for me, it still seems like, wow, it's so stupid, simple idea. It's so, natural to, implement this into my life, like with one tap of a button. But at the same time, you still see a long queues in regular gas stations, car washing places, right? So my question is what has to change in a sense that, okay, we have this app now. How can we make sure that every one of us here in Tallinn will use it, and we love use it?
When you want transformation of a system, you can't focus on an app. Doesn't work. You have to create an environment that is very conducive to change. It's not one change that will change the system. It is an environment where you are so inspiring and so different that people are drawn to it. Instead of the traditional push in marketing, you have to have the pull in marketing. I mean, that's what we teach to all the MBAs. So why do you want to do a push marketing when in the pull? And the pull is what? Is people are fascinated by something that is a surprise. I mean, the whole 3 days here is about creating a wave of surprises. Surprise after surprise after surprise after surprise after surprise. Surprise! I mean, we love surprises. We love birthday presents we didn't expect. We love parties we weren't announced. We love surprise. And so you can't reason with surprise. Mm-hmm. So an app and what the business model that you're prescribing and suggesting is definitely very valid, but it's too rational. It's not enough surprise. You need to have, and in a world where there is so much attention for attention, everyone needs your attention and everyone is fighting for your attention. You can't say, now have attention for me. Doesn't work. You have to have something that is so surprising. And let me give you an example with the teachers. I mean, if I tell the teachers I'm going to explain the law of gravity, everyone falls asleep. I mean, we've learned the law of gravity a long time ago. But if I ask the same teachers, please explain me how did the apple get up in the tree before it falls down with the law of gravity? Then they're saying no, the apple just gets up in the tree. No. What are the 7 laws of physics that permit an apple to go up in the tree against the law of gravity? I tell you, the teachers may not be so excited, but the kids think this is the greatest question they've ever had. Because they know they don't have the answer, but they will go to their parents and dad will go on the Google and not find it. And the kid challenges the teachers, and the teacher will say, but let me think about it. And I did it yesterday with the teachers, and they will come up with 2 laws of physics out of the 7 after 5 hours. Now, that is surprising in education. Why? Because how can you ever explain to a child that you know how the apple comes down, but you have no clue how it ever got up? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. And so you have only a transformation in society when you put your finger on what doesn't make sense. And it's so obvious that people are immediately ready to react. And I'm not giving the answer. I'm not leaving this place and saying, I will give you the answer. No. Surprise means you don't give the instant gratification. And why? Because if you are giving the surprise and the instant gratification, then you will have no patience, you will have no perseverance, and you don't build character for change. This is so important. Change requires character. And character means, yes, be inspired. Yes, love the surprise. But in order to get your 7 laws of physics, you're going to need some patience. And it's going to require a lot of perseverance. But if you've gone through that once, and it becomes kind of a habit every time to have to go through these type of surprises over and over again, you transform society.
But Gunter, what do you mean by instant gratification?
Instant gratification means that I get on the internet, I Google, I have the answer. I go on the app, I push my button, and I have it. That is instant gratification. Mm-hmm. And society is not building change on the basis of instant gratification. Instant gratification is when you're already rolling in the system. And that for an entrepreneur is not possible. You're not there. You're not part of the rolling. You're off. Yeah. And since you're off, you can't expect, as you mentioned, push the button and the cleaning of the car is done. It doesn't work. And that's what they will survive. That's why they have to need money to survive. And this is where we are focusing on how do we transform society much faster at a bigger scale. And I say it starts with surprise. Not with crisis, not with the opportunity. No. It starts with surprise.
What kind of surprises are we talking about?
Every possible one that you can imagine. I mean, what's the lovely contribution a tick gives you in the forests?
I was in the workshop, I know.
Yeah, but so what is a tick doing to you when you go into the forest? And we have to look at the ticks and say, oh, ticks? Most of the people say, oh, yuck, I don't want to have any surprise of a tick. No, ticks will tell you how good is your immune system working. They are the antidote. If you don't want vaccine, you are anti-vaccination, get a tick. I mean, because the tick will immediately tell you if you're ready. And the tick will give you so many bacteria and viruses that you have a high risk of getting sick if your immune system isn't working well. And then you have to ask yourself the question, why is my immune system so down? It's probably because you're eating bad food. Probably you're exposed to too many chemicals. Probably you're using the wrong type of cleaning material in your house. Most likely your walls are off-gassing toxins. We don't know what it is, but your immune system will be stressed when you're not living healthy. And that's when the tick has the opportunity of its life to give you viruses and bacteria and make you sick.
You seem really happy about it. Like,
well, I'm really happy that we know that why someone decided that ticks are a part of the nature. I mean, they're part of the system. And it is not to us as human beings to decide who should and should not be in the system. It is up to us to know how to handle best any crisis situation in the system.
That is so funny. Regarding ticks, just recently, a week ago, I was in my farm home and I had a discussion with my kids about ticks. That they are 5 and a 3-year-old, right? And I'm like, okay, guys, now we're going into the forest. Beware of the ticks, right? Why? Because they bite you and they can, give you disease, right? And I'm like when I'm hearing these thoughts right now, I'm like, I did wrong, I should have said something different.
Well, what we have, we're overprotecting our children.
Sure.
We don't want them to take risks. They only will survive when they know how to take risks. I mean, that is why we have to expose children to situations which are not comfortable. I mean, the creation of discomfort is a precondition for getting ready for surprise. Because it's not only happy surprises, we need to get used to the less than happy surprises. And surprise is therefore so critical in the psychology of a transformation of an attitude, of a habit. And the transformation of making use of opportunities is that you know that when surprise comes, you're ready. And that readiness is something which we call in English resilience. How resilient are you when the shit hits the fan? I mean, how resilient are you? And most of the people are not resilient because they get scared. They're not used to. And so what do we have to do with our educational system? And what do we have to do with our entrepreneurial coaching system is to really prepare everyone for the shock, the surprise, the good ones and the bad ones.
Logically thinking, I spent 12 years in a school plus years in a college or university. The same applies to Mikko. There were no surprises for me anyways.
Oh no, everything is programmed. I mean, you know exactly, you even know the questions to the exams.
Yeah, read the manual and you are okay.
Funny story. My brother and sister went to the same high school than I did. And the literature tests were the same. So basically I took my brother's test and basically copied it. All the questions were the same for 10 or 11 years.
Sounds like we're ready for no future.
Yeah.
This is ready for no future.
Yeah.
This is, if you want to be ready for the future, you don't undergo what Google decides or what Apple proposes. You create your future. And that means that you have to now pass from getting a lot of surprises to be the one who creates the surprises. That's the real entrepreneur. And that is not based on market tests and analysis. I mean, Steve Jobs never said, how would people react to a smartphone? He just made the smartphone.
He created the interest.
Created the smartphone and didn't care very much what people wanted or didn't want. Because if we are agreeing, and I don't know we agree amongst the four of us here, but if we are agreeing that we need a transformation of society, you cannot ask people exactly what they want. Because they don't know. And if you don't know, you have to create it, because only when the creation is on the table, they can accept or reject. But you need to create. And that's why so often our educational system, particularly for entrepreneurs or for MBAs, is tailored to perfection for a multinational corporation that already has the power on the market. But it's not tailored to the young, eager tigers who want to really change the market. And we don't give that space anymore in order to be very innovative and very disturbing and very surprising.
Do you know what interests me the most? Is that when I think about school, one thing I really missed the most was asking critical questions. Nobody emphasized that. To ask why. It's just the teacher said, and it is what it is. Well, learn it.
Yeah.
I turned it around. I was 12 years professor at a university in Italy. And all the students the first day wanted to know, and how's the exam? I mean, it was like, tell me now what is going to be the exam. And I had a very simple rule. I said, the exam is that you come with questions for me. I don't have questions for you. You come with questions for me, and you can pose me 3 questions. And if there is one question that I could not answer, then you get maximum points.
Did anyone get maximum points?
Of course, every year. And of course they get maximum points, because of course, but I admire a student who takes the time to imagine what does the professor not know. Of course, about the subjects I'm teaching. I'm not going out of my subject range. But this is how we have to transform the challenge of learning. Are the students ready? Now, if I'm telling day one to the students that I will give you maximum points, well, in order to be able to know what I do not know, you should know what I do know. So that means that they're automatically studied everything that I have, because all the answers to that is in the book. But so they don't know what is out of the book, and so they will look for that. That means they will learn more than ever was taught. Of course, they should get maximum points. And of course, every year I had 5, 6 to 10 students out of the 200 plus who would do that. And of course, what happened? Then they would post those questions on the internet. And then, of course, people could see what questions did the professor not know. But of course, once they've asked it, I do know. And we need to create new dynamics in learning. I mean, that's my main message. And it's surprised, because I'm surprised that they figure out every time again a question, I don't know. And that's fantastic, because then I'm enjoying the exams. How many professors at university enjoy exams? Exams are absolutely boring. You hear everything you know. I mean, who wants to listen 210 times to the same answers to the same goddamn questions? No one. Of course, we have to do it because the system tells it. So that's why I'm saying, get rid of the exams, or get rid of the school, or maybe you permit the students to have an exam that is asking questions to the professor.
Sounds easy. Sounds even too easy. Meaning, let's change it, right? Like when we speak about it right here, right now. So, but let's think like entrepreneurs right now. Let's think about this kind of an edtech thing. So what should we, or what kind of surprises we should bring out to the table or out into the light that could actually transform this, existing system towards the one you explained right now?
Well, let me first say what will not work.
Okay.
And what we know does not work. I mean, we don't have to say the world is facing a crisis, environmental situation is disastrous, unemployment is no good, government budget is too high, inflation is going to push up. I mean, that we've been trying now for 30, 40 years. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So we should know what does not work. And I think it's very important. Declaring the end of the world is not making people change. So you better declare the opportunities that you have and the incredible chances around, and people will not believe you. And this is the opportunity you have. People don't believe you. And what is happening? We're in a society where we don't have vision anymore. Why don't we have vision? Because we go from models that exist, the American model, the Chinese model, the European supposed model. And so we are told to choose a model. We should be told not to look at the models. And we should be giving the opportunity to create a new vision. But a new vision, how do you create a new vision? By having fantasy. That's why we need young people who are fantastic, who are 3D programmers, who are gamers, who are hip-hoppers. We need people who are really not accepting the box, who are out of the box. And when you're out of the box and you have this opportunity to play with your fantasy, then when you want to translate the fantasy into a vision, then you need a bit of science. You need a bit of science. It just can't translate that. But the vision is not enough. The vision needs a translation into practical things. And the practical things means you need a bit of engineering, you need a bit of business planning, because without that you don't get there. And so what is to me the model to get surprise in the market is your sourcing in fantasy. Not market studies, not market analysis. It's fantasy. It doesn't exist. Transformation only goes fast when you start with things that don't exist. And the opportunity to translate... I'll give you a concrete example. Do you know about stone paper? Paper made from rocks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, if you know stone paper, the first time you heard about it, what did you say?
No way.
No, exactly. So, fantasy. Okay? It's pure fantasy. It took 17 years... No, sorry. It took 1 year to make the first sheet. But it took 17 years to make the machines to produce it mass scale. 17 years. That means 1 year to get the science okay and 17 years to get the engineering okay. But once you got the engineering okay, you're half price in manufacturing, you're 1/3 of the capital cost. You know that you have an opportunity. You have to really be stupid to miss the opportunity. Because at 1/3 the cost, 1/3 the capital cost, and half the operational costs, you must be successful. Whatever the paper industry thinks about you. And this is where we have to go. First reaction is fantasy. Reality is there. You're disruptive. But you're disruptive in a positive way for the whole world. You're not disruptive because you're making an end to paper, as we have known it for 2,000 years. But you're disruptive because you give an opportunity to have places where there's no water and no trees, to finally have your own paper and cardboard. And those who do have trees can finally use the trees to grow a real forest instead of having these genetically modified trees that are supposedly green and growing and who are exhausting the soil, which are exhausting the soil. And so at once when you do your message to the public around it, you have something that is such a surprise, but once it's in the hand, it is so practical. And then you can say, oh, and by the way, we can recycle it forever.
One more thing.
Surprise, right? Surprise. And oh, what do you mean? Recyclable forever. Yeah, you can print it today and in 2,000 years you can still be reading the Bible. That's not what we're used to. And so to me, this is important. It's a fantasy, vision, reality, surprise. And then I know you have a long-term opportunity to transform the market.
This is totally different what I learned.
I wasn't taught this either. I think the biggest business in education today is the MBA.
I remember 4 C's. I remember 4 C's.
Yeah, 4 C's. You will never forget it. I will never forget it. But the difference is that I studied it in 1970s. You studied in 2014. 14. Isn't it amazing they still teach the same stuff?
Yeah, pretty.
Philip Kotler, you remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah, Marketing Management of Philip Kotler, book written in 1964. Still teaching this, as if nothing has happened. How can we do this? And then we sell these courses at a high price.
And the prices are going up and all the time.
Yes, and we're promising that you will be getting a good job.
Yeah.
Working for a multinational. So what are you doing with podcasts?
€0 at the moment.
And why? Because you want to have fun in what you're doing.
Exactly. That's the point.
And how can we squeeze the fun out of work? I mean, how can we squeeze the fun out of work? What I'm trying to do with the teachers is that in the end, the teachers, I hope when they leave tomorrow afternoon, they will say, gosh, we never realized teaching could be so much fun. Because if you don't have joy in the equation, what's the use of moving from fantasy to reality? You have to have a moment of joy. And then you have commitment beyond. Because the joy is what drives you in life.
From my own experience, bringing this surprise out into the table, well, this is pretty practical use case, actually. I'm currently working together with a design agency, and one of our, verticals is service design, right? So just 2 weeks ago, we, compiled this or conducted this kind of a workshop where we kind of we were introduced a new material made in Japan, which is like really squishy. It kind of uses the same material that they use in 3D printing, right? But it's squishy. It has it's really light. It has much air in it. And the logical thinking goes like, hey, let's do a mattress out of it, right? And we were like, maybe, but let's discover other opportunities as well, right? So what we did, we came together in Pärnu, which is like a kurort city in Estonia, right? We spent 5 hours sitting together, fantasizing basically, or imagining like what can we do with this material. So and what happened finally was that the entrepreneur who hired us in the first place, he was like, no way, like you can go so much wider with this piece of squishy material that is made out of recycled plastic, right? So that's something that I really enjoy, but at the same time, this is just a rare case because like in most of the cases, the existing entrepreneurs will tell me that, sorry man, that's too crazy, that's too crazy, we cannot do that, or they have this kind of resistance towards whatever we come up with. And this puts me in a position where we have to really kind of, pursue, convince them and prove them that these other solutions can work as well. So that is something that, grinds my gears at sometimes, that you actually might have some potential in here. Let's dig in, right? But this kind of, there's a block in the way that, has to...
So when there is a block,
yeah,
don't go against it. Life and successful life in business is not going around the blocks. Life and success in business is about surfing. Surfing, yeah, surfing. You have to surf waves. You have to surf energies that are already there. You as an entrepreneur, particularly as a young startup, you cannot think you are the wave. You are the surfer on the waves. And it means that I don't want blocks, I don't want to have obstacles, I just want to know that I can catch the wave and surf. And maybe you gotta wait for the right moment to jump on the wave, but you got to be there for the wave. I'll give you an example. There's a fascinating team of baristas in Riga. And, a barista is just a coffee lover, right? Mm-hmm. Someone who knows how to deal with coffee and loves the coffee and loves to get the right tastes out of the coffee. And if you're a barista and you're roasting coffee, I wish you good luck to be very successful on a European or an international market. You may find a few coffee shops inside Riga or maybe even just in Latvia or in the Baltic states where you can make yourself valuable. But the challenge is, how are you going beyond with the Lavazas, with the Starbuckses, and, with all of the big ones around?
Yeah.
The only way you can make yourself work in there is by ensuring that you change the rules of the game. And changing the rules of the game have to fit the surf. Concretely, this young team in Riga developed solid coffee.
Solid coffee.
Yeah. Surprise. Solid coffee.
Yeah, but a very big surprise.
Solid coffee. But what is the wave on the market? The wave of the market is caffeine. Because what people really want, especially when students are in exam periods or you're a truck driver and you have to go all night or whatever you want to do, party, you want some caffeine. And what is your source of caffeine today?
Energy drinks.
Energy drinks.
True.
And what are they made of? Junk. We know it.
Chemistry.
I mean, it is made out of, it's something that is made with some. Now you're getting organic coffee, you're securing that you get the high caffeine content, which, by the way, caffeine is an insecticide for the plant. The plant uses it to repel insects. You just got to know that it's a very particular chemical. So the caffeine, you have it, you concentrate it, but in coffee, pure is a bit bitter. So you blend 40% cacao with it, cacao butter. And so it's not chocolate, it's coffee, 60%. And now you have your solid coffee, and 10 grams of it beats the best Monster, beats the best energy drink. 10 grams. Surprise, surprise. But what is the wave? The wave is energy drinks. How do you redefine it? With a solid. Surprise. But that's my wave, because I know the wave for the energy drinks is there. But I don't know, are you gamers? If you're gaming, you're doing international gaming,
No, I've never been to
If you do gaming from home, global, if you're gaming and you're into the game, what do you drink? Bit of energy drink. 1, 2, 3. What happens after 3 energy drinks? You gotta go to the toilet. What happens when you go to the toilet? The other ones keep on shooting. So what are you doing? Well, you hold on, right, and hope you're going to win. And so this is exactly, I'm stereotyping it, but this is the logic we are in need of. As an entrepreneur, you identify your wave, and the wave is the energy drink. And you identify the surprise is that with your energy drink, they get more go than you could have imagined. But you don't have to go to the toilet. This is how I define entrepreneurial business ideas. This is how we are securing that we have a unique opportunity to really take the market. But which market? The market that doesn't exist. Because what's the market statistics on solid coffee? But
Nobody
there is
knows.
no
Nobody
statistics, so that's the one.
I've never heard about it, so...
Yeah.
But that is why I want to be into the business of the surprise. That's why I need to say surprise plus the wave is unstoppable. And what am I doing? I'm changing the rules of the game. Because no one is playing according to these rules. Now, here I'm going a little bit fast track. But when I can sell a solid coffee at the same price as an energy drink, what do you think my margin is?
80%.
It's ridiculous. Let's call it this way. It's ridiculous. But what value do I now give to coffee? I give a value that we have never seen before. So what can I do for the farmer? I can really pay the farmer, not the 30% extra because it's fair trade and grown into a forest in the shade and because it is good for the birds and you name it. No, I can just pay 5 times better. 5 times, 10 times. How come I can be so generous? Well, I don't know why people are so generous with energy drinks. I mean, that's the question we have to ask. Yeah. Why are you so generous with energy drinks? Because it's water and a little bit of stuff. And for that, you're ready to pay a high price? Well, if we can transform that into something that is doing good for you and good for the environment and good for the farmer. See, we have lost the capacity to identify the waves, the trends in the market. I mean, there used to be a visionary called Alvin Toffler, John Naisbitt. Have you heard of these guys? These were
the
in
second one I've heard of.
John Naisbitt, he was talking about mega trends. What are the big trends? I mean, when have we seen the last analysis of mega trends? No, the big furor is about Harari, who explains the past. We don't have people who push us to the future. Why is analyzing the past so important in a world where transformation is key? Because we want to learn from history? Bullshit. I mean, who wants to learn from history when we need to do a fundamental transformation? You need to have an imaginative approach towards the future. And that is not by analyzing the past. It's not by seeing how the animals and the gods were transformed throughout history. And so that is for me an indication of where society is at. If you're only analyzing the past, you're not ready for transformation. If you're ready for a book like Megatrends, then you're ready for transformation. And that is what is missing in society. And that's why we need a new generation of entrepreneurs. And in order to have that new generation of entrepreneurs, we need a new generation of teachers.
But how has the feedback been so far regarding your method, I mean the new method? Because we come from like really structural educational system. So how's the feedback?
Well, I will invite you tomorrow afternoon to come and listen to the feedback of the teachers. I cannot give the feedback, but what I can only share with you is the decisions that other countries have taken. Like, for example, the Chinese government. I mean, what's the feedback in your mind when you learn that the Chinese government has decided that 365 of these fables and the whole pedagogy that I'm promoting is the standard of the Chinese educational system today? I mean, do you think Chinese government decides that because they think it's nice to do a little test?
No.
The Chinese government decides because there is a clear perceived need to change society. And to come from a system where kids were not at all prepared to take on the great challenges of the future, where everything is in the hands of a few people, who of course cannot foresee everything that needs to be done. And therefore I think the most important indication is the largest educational system of the world is the Chinese educational system, with 735,000 schools with an average of 2,000 kids in a school. And when they decide that this is the way they want to go, why do you think they decided? Because they tested it. And they realized that kids come out in a different way. And what kind of kids come out? Positive ones. The ones who think positive and are committed to community and society and who want to do better, who are not criticizing because that's what they've learned to debate is the good and the bad. They have learned to discuss how to do much better. And you know, these are the philosophical approaches that permit us to do a transformation in society. So do we want to stay in a political system where it's the good versus the bad, the majority versus the minority? Or are we ready for a political system where everyone agrees that what we have is not good enough and we got to do much better? And that is the framework of thinking. So the second government that has now adopted is France. And the third one, surprise, surprise, Bulgaria.
Bulgaria.
Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
But why? And you know, what's the first country in the world that got hacked 100% for the whole nation? You haven't seen that news?
No.
Bulgaria. Bulgaria is the first country where every taxpayer that is registered with the government has been hacked through one simple hack. So, people are ready for a change, right?
Yeah, that must have been very, very painful.
And how come you don't know? How come the information doesn't get to your...
I don't read the news, so...
Well, but this is kind of the news that should pop out, right? I mean, the whole nation gets hacked. All taxpayers got hacked. Not at home, but at the Ministry of Finance. And I think these kind of situations bring into the mindset of a government the clarity that we got to change something. Because are we now going to reserve 30% of the budget to avoid hacking? You better know how to work with hackers now. You better know how. And that means we got to change the system. How are we going to change the system? Well, that is going to depend on a fantasy translated into a vision and a reality.
That is, well, I just wanted to quickly share thoughts regarding why we most possibly didn't see these news. The thing is that just lately, Estonian government was hustling with a big problem regarding our ID cards. There was a major, security issue with our ID cards, and that obviously created a situation where, most of the ID card holders had to change one. The tech had to be updated, and so forth. So this kind of created a situation where these, let's call them anti-hackers, right? Or cybersecurity promoters. I actually met with one, and he kind of described me like, how do they play out these scenarios? What can possibly happen with these kind of institutes and these kind of data? And what he promotes right now is that we're going to play out so stupid, crazy, solutions, or like opportunities that can happen, that can possibly happen. For example, if I have a memory card or a USB memory card holder here, and it's somewhere laying on the floor, that should already raise your attention that there can be something, dangerous for my computer, right? So these guys go into so crazy scenarios already, and they're kind of pulling Estonian government into this vibe, or I would even say wave, that we now know that we need to work on it. So I think what happened to Bulgaria is just one thing that has happened, but these things will happen again and again, and in so many different forms that we cannot predict them right now. But the ones who work with them and who work against hackers, these guys, I think, in my personal opinion, do a brilliant job. Because they just have to work with governments, institutions, officials, to tell them that, hey, cybersecurity is a big thing right now, and we need to prepare ourselves for whatever happens. And you can only imagine what can happen. So that's the case. Yeah.
I'm still using an old Nokia. I don't have a TV. I don't read the news, so I'm like a caveman, so I have nothing to add to that.
I don't even have a phone. You still have a Nokia.
Yeah.
I've done away with the phone. I don't want a phone anymore.
How come?
A phone is invasive. A phone tracks me. A phone, gives access to me that I don't want to give anymore. And so I think it is very important we make these clear decisions in life. Also, I don't want to have any radio waves around my head. There's too many already, so I'm not going to carry a phone to get some extra radio waves around my head. This is more than enough. And the 5G is going to make it even more difficult to free yourself from radio waves. We forget that radio waves have not been designed for cybersecurity. The original radio waves that we're using for the Wi-Fi, they come out of a microwave oven because they were free waves and they were cheap. That's why Wi-Fi is designed the way it is. It's a radio wave from a micro oven. Surprise.
Yeah.
And of course, microwave ovens were not designed for data transmission security. And so now we have all these hacks, of course, because we forgot where it came from. And therefore, I think the only way to move forward is to fundamentally transform the whole internet. And the whole internet will be transformed in the next 10 years because it's a stupid internet. It's a Neanderthal version of internet. And the 5G will make not any difference whatsoever. It is backwards and out of date, particularly in terms of security, but more, it is everything is forced to be 2D. You have texts, you have pictures, you have movies, and we love our internet accessibility in 2D. Well, ask any child, do you want to play games in 2D or 3D? No one wants to play in 2D. 2D is a boring game. You want everything to be rendered 3D, and we're going to see things through this virtual reality, but that is also just 2D, played around with. And so the big shift we will see in security will only happen when we stop using what was never designed for security. That is never debated. And so I'm not putting the blame on anyone. I'm saying that if we move from a 2D to a 3D, I need 1,000 times better transmission speed. 5G is not giving me that. So if I have a 3D, suppose that the table in front of us here turns into a 3D space. I can give an IP address to every pixel. Okay? Every pixel in this space will get an IP address. And of course, ICANN in the United States is not prepared to give so many addresses to so many pixels. That means instead of having one screen, with a flat screen and a beautiful screen and a nicely curved screen, we only have 1 pixel per level, per layer. And now we're going to do that 50,000 times? Where are our processing capacities now? We don't have it. We don't have TVs that can do that. And that is why we're ready for innovation. That's why we're ready for surprise. But I'm looking at the waves, and the waves for me are very clear. Any young person wants 3D. No gaming in 2D will be successful. It's all going to go 3D. And so since I know the next generation is going for gaming in 3D and virtual reality is what they want, well, I'm going to turn the virtual reality into reality 3D. And that means we're going to have an internet transmission speed 1,000 times faster. And that's not 5G. I repeat, it's not 5G. 5G is a mess up. It's a mess up, it's an intermediary phase that is going to ruin the health of many people because we're increasing dramatically the amount of radio waves beyond what can guarantee healthy cellular growth. Cellular growth, I mean cells, brain cells, body cells, life. And so that is why I am looking with our research teams. I have more than 3,000 researchers around the world. That's my strength. And I make a statement about science is because I have at least 1 or 2 scientists who tell me, Gunter, this is where it's going. And I only have to understand, because I can't explain, because I'm not a scientist. But when I do realize that it's going to be perfectly possible to have a full 3D rendering on a table like this, actually today, do you know Looking Glass Factory in Hong Kong?
Looking Glass Factory.
Looking Glass, Glass. They're doing full 3D, and there's no keyboard anymore. A full 3D rendering, surprise, and no more keyboards. Yeah, because the keyboard is what's blocking us. I mean, we somehow got hooked on this AZERTY, and we're still in the typewriters machine world of the 1920s, where we were doing like this, and then we're doing like this. But let's be honest, we have not been able to get out of the keyboard. And so the 3D rendering is still keyboard related, but the internet in 3D will be completely without a keyboard. Completely. It's gone. It's with your hands. We know that already. That programming already exists. Kano, I can teach it my kids. Kids will teach me Kano. And I will know how to do it with my hands. But we haven't figured out how we are now going to do a full 3D rendering of everything we do, because the space transmission we have is not enough. You can't use satellites for that. The only thing we can use is light. Because the only thing that transmits sufficient data fast enough is light. I mean, ask yourself the question, how was it ever possible that not only did we take a radio wave out of a microwave? I mean, that was the first thing. Second, how can we even choose radio waves? Because what we really are in need of is another type of wave. I mean, we know, right, that the speed of sound is a bit slower than the speed of light. Why aren't we operating the internet at the speed of light? Tell me why. Because we're ignorant? Or because we're stupid? I mean, I'm afraid that the choices were made for the internet without any strategy or vision in mind. It just happened. Because that's what worked, that's what was available, that's what we did. But if you now have the chance, 25 years after the internet started, to rethink it, you're never going to do it with a radio wave coming out of a microwave. You're never going to do it with the speed of transmission that is the speed of sound. With a number of frequencies, radio frequencies, you could have 1,000. Of course, the governments can sell a license to a radio wave at billions because there are only 1,000 of them, and 40% are reserved for the military, sometimes 60%. But what is about the frequencies of light? Do you know how many frequencies light has?
No.
1 billion. And they're for free. So would we like entrepreneurs to be active in the internet space in the future? You better do internet over light with a billion frequencies, space for everyone. And now we don't have to say we celebrate 1 million apps. No, we celebrate 1 billion possible transmission speeds at 2 tera per second. What is possible when you can do 2 tera per second? On every lamp that's hanging above you.
You tell me.
Well, everything is possible. I mean, this is the beauty, you know, and this is where I go back to what is the wave. The wave is people want to go 3D. The wave is clear. The people want higher speed. You don't have to debate with people if they want higher speed, yes or no. Everyone shifts immediately to the higher speed because that's what they want. But if I'm getting my internet at 2 tera per second, which we think will be already in 2022, provided you have the light system, and provided you have a fiber, an optical fiber in the backup. But if you are doing that, how many videos can you download per second?
200?
Yeah, about 300. 300 videos in 1 second downloaded. I mean, Netflix doesn't have enough material to send down the tube.
No.
And you can go on Canal Plus and Netflix, and you can do Euro, you can do anyone you want. They don't have enough material for you to download. That's the beauty of it. And so that is where the opportunities are. That is why I can change the rules of the game. That is why I need to say, surprise. Because it gives so many opportunities to so many young people. Is Estonia investing in 5G?
Yeah, they
There's
are actually.
There's a debate ongoing. It's an ongoing process where there's actually a group of people who are debating if it's something that we're going to implement or not.
Let's stimulate the debate.
We're on the way.
I'm sure someone paid a lot of money to get a license to do it.
Sure.
And I'm sure they're going to insist on being able to do it. But the problem is that in order for having 5G operational, you will need an antenna every 100 meters in direct range, in direct contact. 100 meters? Gee whiz. Do I really want to have everywhere an antenna? Where I'm then saying you can use every public street light instead. So if I can use every public street light instead, what are you going to invest in? In the antennas or in the street lights?
I would go with the lights.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, use common sense. And what is going to be the value of your streetlights when you're doing your backbone of internet high speed over your streetlights? What's going to be the value of your streetlights? Now I'm talking as an economist.
I don't know, but my neighbors will be really happy. And especially my neighbor kids, like they are huge gamers. And,
Yeah, so they will go outside in the summer and the winter. They will duck themselves in the winter time to get 2 tera per second transmission speed. Can you imagine what it is? I mean, they're beating everyone in the world. Speed is going to be so devastating. And I come back. surprise, what's the wave? And these two things is what I think every entrepreneurial school, every coaching system of people who want to get out and do things, that should be the guiding light. Surprise, the wave. Start surfing.
Well, talking about surprise, you're like those surprise elements you're writing in your fables, which are basically based on blue economy principle. Can you like talk a little bit about what is the blue economy principle?
Well, surprise in the fables and the blue economy, in the end of the day, is nothing more than appreciating nature. Is deciding that my inspiration is nature, because nature has solved every possible problem over the past 4 billion years, and whatever solution didn't work isn't there anymore. It's a fossil. So to me, if we want to have really surprises, go and study nature. I will give you a surprise, and this is part of my fables. Plants have chlorophyll, you know that. Plants have 2 types of chlorophyll. When plants have 2 types of chlorophyll, they need 2 types of chlorophyll because they're green, and green light is reflected on green. So they need to be able to catch the light that is not green, that means yellow or blue. That means I need 2 chlorophylls. When I have 2 chlorophylls and I know where the sun is standing, what do I know? I have a GPS and a calendar without a satellite. Are you following me?
It's really hard. I'm trying.
If I have 2 points, I can triangulate. What is a GPS all about? It's about triangulation. It's about getting the satellite and get your points. Now, we only have 1 point, therefore we need 2 or 3 satellites.
Yeah.
Plants turn it around. They got 2 points and they got the sun, so they can triangulate. I mean, because no one in the car has 2 GPSs connected to 1 satellite. We don't do that. You may have 2 GPSs in your car, one on your phone and one on the car, but they're all doing the same stupidity. They're connecting with 2, 3 satellites and 1 point in your car. I mean, who invented something as stupid as that? It can only be done by military people and highly intelligent people in the electronics world, but it doesn't make any sense. You should see how nature has resolved it. And nature has resolved it by 2 chlorophylls, which at millimeters apart, nanometers apart, are able to triangulate with the sun and tell the plant where it is in the world and what day of the year it is.
There you go.
So, that is my inspiration. And therefore I'm saying, if plants can do that at the speed of light, this triangulation without satellites and have a GPS and a calendar, why can't we do that? Are we not intelligent enough? Are we so stupid we need to put satellites in orbit for that?
Maybe.
Well, we are stupid and we must be very rich because plants don't have the money nor the capacity to put things in orbit, nor do they need to do that. This is the exact kind of debate we have to have in a society like the Estonian one on where do we take the country to the future. Are you going to embrace the things of the past? Are you now going to debate buying a part of a satellite that is going to cost you hundreds of millions, which of course the European Investment Bank will be ready to fund? And of course you will increase your debt levels, and of course you will be ready to be part of modernity because the internet of the future is going to depend on what? It is not going to depend on a satellite. And this is where we have been offered just 2 limited solutions. Why? Because we didn't understand how nature works.
And in my personal, honest opinion, it's not obviously important, but we are still not learning. We kind of tend to think that it's there, but we don't have time and energy to dig deeper. Like, obviously, there's trees all around us, but in today's world, in our when we think about our daily routines, like, how should I approach this kind of mission that, okay, let's see what's out there. Like, how do I learn new things? I really don't have an answer to that because, like, what I saw just like a month ago was that I saw a bee going into a little hole on a table that was outside, the bee was carrying beautiful like pieces of leaves that were all the same size. And I'm like, this guy is a better architect than I am, really, or a builder, because like this guy knows exactly what he's doing, or she, maybe.
This will probably be a she. Yeah. The he's are not so smart.
and that's the thing. Like it got me thinking at the moment, but at the same time, when I'm still in my routine, it's really difficult for me to, take time off, read, learn, go out into the nature and discover, right?
But to me, we need to kind of come to a conclusion about innovation. We need to come to a conclusion about what do we do in terms of innovation for a nation like Estonia. What do the Estonians really want? And I can guarantee you, if I entertain them for a couple hours about all these opportunities, people say, but what the hell are we doing? And they say, but that's what we want. And I only need a few young people who see the wave. And I don't think I need anyone convincing that if I can offer you internet at 2 tera per second by 2022, that I think we'll have people ready to go for it.
I think so.
I don't think we even need to debate it. It is a matter of who will be partner in making this happen. And one of the challenges you have is you will need a government with vision to do this, because that vision means the government will disassociate itself from the internet of the past. Now, that is a political decision. But if the entrepreneurs see the opportunity, then I think there will be the right pressure. And so I am discussing with several governments around the world, how do we now create this transition from a 2D to a 3D internet? And that's exactly the same as what happened from going from radio to television. It's the same. It's not from internet to internet. This is as disruptive as going from radio to television. The internet 2D has nothing to see with internet 3D. It's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's totally unrelated. And since it's totally unrelated, what does it mean? It means that it's a level playing field. And when you have a level playing field, you change competitive framework. And that is what blue economy is about, to come to your question. It's about using what you have, focusing on responding to needs, creating value, generating jobs. But the key is responding to what people need. And people do not need cookies that were made with butter that was shipped around the world, and wheat that was shipped around the world, and cookies that were made that were also shipped around the world. I mean, that nonsense we don't need. But what we do need is respond to basic needs of society, and that includes a full respect for culture and tradition, a full respect for identity, a full respect for opportunities in life to enjoy and to actually move things forward for the better. And that is not about just protecting nature, that is putting nature back on its evolutionary path, because that's what nature has always been doing. We have now succeeded in stopping it, and the best we can imagine is to create a forest reserve. That's a joke. I mean, this is not serious. So we need political leadership to accompany the young generation that is without any doubt ready to take this on. Without any doubt.
Regarding vision, the problem is that we elect the parliament, the government in every 4 years, right? So this kind of puts us in a position like, how do you keep this vision regardless of the government and the people who are part of the government?
It has to be so obvious that no one can go against it. 2D to 3D is so obvious. So obvious. So Estonia has a reference and a recognition in terms of programming and algorithms and so on. But is it ready to make this jump? And if it is ready, then let's go. But that readiness will be driven by entrepreneurs with a vision based on a lot of fantasy. But the reality will only come if there is a policy framework. And that policy framework has to be forged. I mean, like steel, you have to hammer at it, because they will not change. There are too many vested interests. And therefore, you need to be prepared to be perseverant, have a bit of patience, keep at it, but have clarity of what is possible. And that requires a lot of fantasy.
I mean, the patience part, I think it's the hardest. Like, you talked about the instant gratification that kind of takes out the patience element. We are used to getting everything in an instant.
Well, if I'm telling you that you should go for 2 tera per second, you don't expect it tomorrow. You actually will tell me that I'm crazy when I promise it to you for 2022. You'll say, no, that's not possible. So it depends on how we debate. And if you debate on the surprise, then you will have much more patience.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, the surprise element.
The surprise.
Yeah. If I'm telling you, no, that's not going to happen in 2022, and it's going to happen, so yeah, it's a surprise element.
Well, I can share with you that today we're already at 252 gigs per second in China in transmission speed. 252.
And without...
With light.
With light.
With light.
Yeah.
252. And what is our bottleneck? The chips. The hardware is the problem, not the physics. Physics is easy. Physics is actually predictable. But the hardware isn't there. So we need to develop the hardware.
Just the same case as with the stone paper.
Yeah, exactly. You have a proof of concept, your POC, your proof of concept is there, but you need to have the hardware to roll it out. But that's going to come quickly. Because enough people are inspired by being able to do 2 tera per second. And once we've broken to the 2 tera per second, you just go for the speed of light for everything. And that was announced by Einstein, about 100 years ago. It's about time we fulfilled the vision of this genius.
I mean, the law of physics are the same. They're not going to change. So.
Well, we may see some slight changes. There are people who are debating now that there are particles that could move faster than light. But in the meantime, I'm satisfied with speed of light.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
I'm there. But there's already discussion about going beyond it, and that's what science and innovation should all be about. Can we move beyond? Yes or no? Of course we can move beyond. Depends on our intellectual framework.
By the way, have you always been a blue thinker?
Oh, I've always been a troublemaker. That
Aren't
I've
we
always
all?
been.
Huh?
Well, if you haven't made any trouble, what did you do in your life? I mean, you have to be a troublemaker. You have to make people sit straight up and be uncomfortable. And so I have been very concerned about environment and the social issues, but it takes perhaps half a lifetime to know how to handle it and how to contribute. Because it's trial and error all the way through. All the way through. And whenever you think you have a solution, you have to realize that there's always a better solution still within reach. And whatever you think was the best is not going to be the best very soon.
But have you always been like that? Or it has come over time? And
I have never worked for anyone else. I've always been independent. I created my company when I left university. And so, yeah, I've always been a rebel. You know that they actually call me the Che Guevara of sustainability, not just Steve Jobs
anymore.
But I don't carry arms, I don't shoot bullets, and I don't create billion-dollar companies either. So I think it's important we are rebellious and we are disruptive. More rebellious than disruptive. Disruptive is an overused word these days, but we have to be very disruptive and rebellious and ensure that the status quo, which we kind of feel comfortable with and where we are ready to make some small changes in the fringes, that we can turn that around. We can't have status quos anymore. We have to realize that unless we create discomfort, and this is another very key component, you have to create a good level of discomfort. And the good level of discomfort has to permit all of us, to rethink the way that we are operating today. So we can't put people and confirm comfort to people and then say that, oh, and by the way, you have to change. No. You create discomfort and you say there are many opportunities to change. And the discomfort is because the framework conditions that we know don't apply anymore. Framework conditions, it's not anymore the car with the TV set, with the internet connection, with the job from 9 to 5 and the traffic jams we've gotten used to. We have to create a discomfort. This is not anymore what you can continue counting on. And it's that transition through discomfort. There's a very famous French philosopher, famous in France, a French philosopher whose name is René Char. I'm not sure you never heard of him.
No.
René Char said, celui qui vient au monde pour ne rien troubler ne mérite ni regard ni patience. If you come to this world and you cause no trouble whatsoever, you don't deserve any appreciation nor patience. And I think what we as entrepreneurs, transformers, disruptors, people who are into the change agents, we need to only ask for one thing, is patience. We don't need to be appreciated, but we need to have patience from others. People need to be patient about going through moments of discomfort. And not many people are prepared because we have gotten used. We have discomfort like cocaine into our body. It's addiction. We're addicted to comfort. And that is why I take my children, all my children have to go through what I call the Arctic experience. That means that I leave on the 1st of January from wherever we are. We travel to the Arctic with my Sami friends, and we spend a week in the open air without a tent.
Wow.
With 10, 12-year-old boys. I have 5 boys, 1 girl. With a girl, I don't do it.
So going full Bear Grylls style.
And you just have to figure out, how am I surviving? And of course, we have a Sami with us who knows how to do it. Mm-hmm. But the key thing is we need to take our children out of the comfort zones. The greatest error parents make is to create comfort and protected zones for the children. And that's how they will never be ready for any shock that comes into their life.
But that's kind of like working against your instincts, right? Your instinct as a parent is basically just like provide comfort and to protect them.
I don't know which instinct you talk about, but my instinct says that my kids have to have resilience. And resilience is not created through comfort.
That is true.
That's my instinct. Mm-hmm. So if you are part of the millennium generation who has an instinct where you're saying that, I need to have protective environments then you are indeed spoiling your children to the point of incapacity to respond when there's a crisis. And that means you will never be able to say your kids goodbye because they will always depend on you. So you better have an endowment fund for them so that they can draw money when you're not around anymore. Is this the world we want? Is this the kids we want? So this is a very key question. So I've decided that since I had the privilege of becoming an entrepreneur without experience and without money at the start, I want my children to have that mental preparedness for the crisis. And crisis is normal. Crisis is the standard in life. You just need to know how to handle it. And of course, if crisis is such that it's devastating for you, well, then you will not know how to handle, and then you will suffer. And so the original protection parents wanted to give is no protection anymore. It has become the nightmare.
Luckily, I don't have kids yet, so yeah.
Well,
I have a chance to make
you still have a chance.
Yeah,
you
I
have
have
a
2
5-year-old. So
Yeah.
in 5 years you can go to the Arctic.
That's what I'm considering right now. Yeah, putting
yeah.
this one into my calendar.
Better get used to how to keep your feet warm
Yeah.
while being in the Arctic on the 1st of January.
My feet are actually cold when it's like 30 degrees outside. So,
By the
I
way,
don't know.
it's my daughter's birthday on 1st of January, so it would make sense to celebrate her birthday in the Arctics.
Yeah, in the
And have a
complete
great-
dark. Take one
Yeah.
candle with you.
See how that goes.
That is true. Wow, this is really inspiring. Like this is the question I'm actually having in my own head constantly. Like, how do I make sure that my kids will be dependent, right? Like, sorry, independent. Meaning that, like, already, like, if she's a 5-year-old, like, what exactly can I do, on a daily basis? Not just like, as a 1st of a January like experience, but something that, teaches her something every day, something new. It doesn't have to be really big, but something, tweaking, giving some, like, sharing ideas that, hey, go there, discover something new in the woods, for example. Would I actually, let my kid be in the woods for, an hour without me being there? I don't know. I really don't think so. It would be a great idea. But at the same time, this is something that teaches her something new right from the beginning, right? So, but what exactly should I do? I have no idea. I really don't know. But in my own head, I'm always thinking that I want my kids to be independent, be themselves in their nature, in their core, right? So I definitely appreciate sharing this thought with me today. Like that.
We have to create challenges. If we do not create challenges for the next generation, challenges will take care of them. So we have to really have a learning system in life that prepares you to look at challenges and smile at them. And that's only because you've gone through the routine. You know how to look for what. And of course, when there are new challenges, like I believe we will be facing enormously in the next few decades, challenges we've never seen before, you can't really be prepared with the knowledge of the past. You need to be ready to create a new knowledge. You need to be able to invent the solutions. And these inventions of solutions is not what has been done before. That's why the business case studies that all great MBA schools are proposing is totally useless when it comes to an analysis of challenges. Because you're only looking at what has worked in the past, and that is a guarantee. There's no guarantee that it will ever work in the future.
Yeah.
This is where we need to have a very solid, fresh look. How do we prepare for the challenges? I mean, we talk about rising sea levels, and we talk about climate change. Are these really the biggest challenges we have, or is it just all the chemicals in our food and our mummification of our body by eating so many microplastics? I mean, I'm convinced today that the presence of microplastics in our food and our drinks is much more devastating than any climate change, because we will be mummifying our complete body with microplastics before we ever knew what to do about climate change. And so we see that there is this massive attention to climate change without any action whatsoever, because we keep on producing the carbon dioxide as we did before. But we realize that there is no real awareness of what the bigger challenges are. And the bigger challenges is the total loss of biodiversity, the massive mummification of our digestive systems with microplastics. And what are we doing? How are we preparing for a challenge for which we didn't even know it was there? So how can we prepare on how to handle it when it becomes obvious? I mean, do you know how to clean your liver for microplastics?
I have no idea.
Lemon water.
Well, I wish you good luck. See, but this is where I'm saying the first birds are dying not because their stomach is full of microplastics, because their livers are blocked because of microplastics. A blocked liver with microplastics means a mummified liver. I mean, what are you going to do with a mummified liver? You're going to have to take it out and put in a new one. I wish you good luck. I wish you good luck. And, you know, it's quite amazing that it's known that every liter of water you drink out of a plastic bottle will put between 3,000 and 10,000 microplastics in your liver. And we keep on drinking it. We're not even debating if we should ban it. It's not even a debate. So I think that one of the great challenges we have is, since we have such an ignorance about the real challenges we're facing, we can't really be prepared for the challenges because we don't know which one they are. So that's why we need to build on character. That's why we need to build on attitude. That's why we need to build on a vision for life. That's why we need to know how to translate fantasy into reality. Only then you can be prepared for what you could not prepare yourself for.
I recently gave a task to my daughter to invent a new toy that is not made out of plastic, and that it's something that is scalable. You can actually, sell it sell it and produce it and give it to her kindergarten mates, right? And she had so much difficulty figuring out what it is. She started drawing, prototypes. And I could see that she was actually hustling. She was actually having trouble with that. And I really liked it. I didn't like the hustling part, but I really liked that. I could see that she was putting attention and effort into it. Well, we are not there yet, but I think when we talk about plastic as it is, and when you go to a regular kids' toys shop, right? All you see is plastic, and you have no idea how many different billion shapes a plastic can take. So that's what really grinds my gears at the moment, because I get stressed out. I really get stressed out when I go to a shop and I know that I'm spending money on plastic. That will be a waste, for myself, for the environment, for the society. And nobody's even talking about how we can change that, because it is as it is.
So, in the blue economy, one of our core principles of operating is asking the question, how to substitute something with nothing. I repeat, how to substitute something with nothing. And this is a kind of a trap, a mind trap, because we're always trying to substitute a plastic with something else that is not a plastic. And I'm saying, why don't you substitute what you have with nothing at all? Because shouldn't we ask the question if we needed what we have? Give you a concrete example. Do we need batteries? Of course, your computer wouldn't work without a battery, your cell phone wouldn't work with a battery, your watch wouldn't work without a battery. That's why I don't have a watch, I don't have a computer with me, I have a computer. I don't have a phone, but I am totally against, our kids cannot have toys with batteries. Why? Well, very simple, because there's too much mining. And we're putting these scars on the face of the earth with massive open pit mining. And how could we then ever be calling against the open pit mining and the destruction that we're having, and have kids use dozens of batteries, which often are not even recycled, and sometimes not even recyclable? And then I'm asking the question, when everyone says, but that's not possible, how can you be, a battery is a part. No. The only species on Earth, the only species on Earth that needs batteries as a power backup is the human species. A whale pumps 1,000 liters of blood every heartbeat and has enough power to go on for 80 years without maintenance. There's no wire, there's no battery. How does it do it? I mean, these are the kind of questions we have to ask. We do not have to have research on how to make better batteries. We have to make research on how to operate power without the battery and still be independent, because as far as I know, there is no battery backup for any whale to have its heart function. Now, if the whales figured it out, why can't we? And they're pumping 1,000 liters per pulse. And this is the kind of real challenge that we must dare to put forward. I still have to wait for the first university to accept the challenge, because most of the engineers will say it doesn't work.
That's what engineers like to say.
Yes, but they should be a bit creative, and they should get out of the box. And if we continue with our appetite for batteries as we have it today, then we will destroy Bolivia for their lithium, and we will destroy Tajikistan as well, and we will destroy because we will have an appetite that is so big, and we think we're in modernity, and we're doing it to save fossil fuels. So that is why I'm asking, can we have, as a core principle within the blue economy, can we have the question on the table, how to substitute something with nothing? How can I turn seawater into drinking water without a membrane? And then people say, doesn't work. Well, of course, if you're the salesman of the membranes, of course it's not going to work, because it would work to work, you're out of business. But every seaweed and every mangrove knows how to do the transformation of seawater into fresh water without a membrane. They all know. How come we don't know? Because we haven't been able to study a seaweed. We haven't been able to analyze, how come we haven't been able to do that? I mean, are we not teaching biology somewhere at university? Or what are they looking at? And if you study what they're looking at in biology, they're studying genetics. Well, what's the use of knowing the DNA when you haven't figured out how they turn seawater into fresh water? What's the use of the DNA when you can't figure out in the genes of a plant, in the genome of the plant, you can't even figure out where is recorded the position of the sun? Because we have genome analysis and we have genetics, but we have no clue where the memory of the position of the sun is located, because that we have no clue where to look for. Now, if we have no clue where to look for, you better learn how to look, because they do have the position. So these are, we are selling ourselves too often that we are modern society. No. We just beyond the Neanderthals. I mean, we just passed them, and barely. Because they probably had a bit better idea how the solar system was working than we have figured it out. I'm one of those who has promoted very heavily something that is called what do we call it again? What do you call the science of looking at the stars? Astronomy. So we're doing ethnoastronomy. That means we're looking at the stars in the same ways as the Dogon people in Mali were looking at it. And we're looking at the stars the way the Egyptians were looking at it. And we're looking at the stars the way the Chinese were looking at it. And then we look at the decisions they made based on the positions of the stars. And of course they had very poor capacity to look at the stars and see the positions, but they were all deciding on agriculture, on irrigation, on planting, on harvesting by looking at the stars. We don't look at the stars anymore. We look at a GPS position that's controlled by the American military.
Yeah.
I mean, excuse me, why don't you know how to look at the stars anymore? I mean, how many kids still know how to use a compass? How many kids can actually read a map? Because the day that someone decides somewhere to hack the satellite that brings down your GPS here, I wish you good luck to find a way. I wish you nothing but good luck. And that day is going to come. And we don't know anymore how to look at a map. Actually, we don't have maps anymore. We got Google Maps, but when the electricity is gone, it doesn't work anymore. So we are actually increasing vulnerability in society. And the increased vulnerability is even worse because who decides on the IP address in your computer? The American government. Oh, well, we're friends.
Surprise.
Yeah, we're friends. But how long will that be? I mean, if the American government even was prepared to hack the phone of Mrs. Merkel in Berlin, and I think they're friends as well. So we need to just be aware that the reality around us is not the stability and the simplicity that we used to have. It means that decisions can be made that are very detrimental to a few, or that a hacking can be taking place that actually disconnects the GPS from Estonia. And where will the Estonians be driving to? Well, Estonia is small enough, you can still find a way. That may be true. But we have to realize that we have such an increased vulnerability that there is not only the need for resilience, there's a need to reduce the vulnerability that we have to face.
But in your opinion, what needs to happen for us as a society to take a deeper look into physics and how the nature really works, and get inspired by it and create something new using the nature itself?
What's the word I insisted on in the very beginning of my presentation and dialogue with you? Surprise. It's the only way. I mean, this is so embedded in the human culture. All cultures celebrate surprise. All cultures. I mean, look at the Japanese culture, how they wrap a gift. I mean, this is not wrapped because they like to waste paper. This is wrapped because they want to increase the tension for the discovery of what is the surprise. And we need to come back to the essence of a human being. And the essence of a human being is indeed to enjoy surprise. So I come back to what we talked about an hour and a half ago, surprise. Because if I can present with such surprise, a cascade of surprises, people will want to know. I mean, a question, do you know that when you sneeze, you're expelling air from your nose at 100 kilometers an hour? I mean, wow, and how does it work? With a simple sneeze? Yeah, a simple sneeze, it's 100 kilometers an hour. That's what it is. 100 kilometers an hour. Wow. Wouldn't you like to know how some other animals are sneezing? And this is where we need to go. 100 kilometers an hour. Wow.
Just the building the curiosity element.
You need to, we need to unveil some data that is nevertheless so easy to verify and so obvious, but how come we didn't know? How come we didn't know? And this is where then you could say, well, if we can sneeze at 100 kilometers an hour, what else can we do? What can we do with a sneeze? Well, I'm not suggesting that we should have some kind of a pressure capturing device put on your nose when you're sneezing. I'm trying to just say that when that is possible with such a limited amount of resources, then what more can be done? And this is where we have to build, because I'm really calling now for creativity. I don't have the 101 solutions that can be connected to the sneeze. But what I can say is that this is what the sneeze is doing, and if that's what the sneeze is, what more can you do? And that is kind of like you were talking about before. That is where we're saying the opportunities are so huge that I call it a portfolio of opportunities. And when you have a portfolio of opportunities, you change the mindset of people. If you're talking about nothing but problems and analysis of problems, how much imagination do you think you will create in society? None. you will create hedonism. People will say, après moi le déluge. You know that French saying?
No.
Après moi le déluge means after me, the floods.
That was one of the kings, Louis XIV, was it?
One of those, yeah.
One of those Louis ones.
I don't celebrate kings. I mean, I'm a Republican by heart and soul, so...
Gunter, you mentioned before that you are like working together with scientists.
Yeah.
And like approximately 3,000 of them. And as far as I know, it's called the ZERI program, or like
Correct.
the Zero Emission Research Initiative.
Zero emissions research and initiatives.
And initiative, yeah.
I mean, we don't want to research. We want initiatives. Okay? So this is really what we are. We're celebrating 25 years. And we've been at it. I was invited in 1994 to help prepare the Kyoto Protocol.
Really?
That's called COP3. So I was in COP1, COP2, COP3, and no more COPs, please. Because the COPs have demonstrated their total incapacity to take the bold decisions that we need. And when decisions are finally made, we don't implement. So, sorry guys. I mean, after, what is it now, COP26? Forget about it. I don't want to be part of it. I'm not interested. What I was interested in is, in 1994, the Japanese government thought that it was very key to have a creative approach to what could be done to reduce carbon emissions. And for some reason, I was invited to lead the group. None of the proposals that we had were even considered. They were not rejected, they were not even considered. Because Europe and America had already clearly decided it was going to be cap and trade. They're going to issue certificates of emission, then they're going to trade them. And that is what we've decided to do. And what's the result? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And of course, we're hoping that the price for carbon per ton will increase rapidly and will be much more beneficial to those who are not emitting. I mean, not emitting is the solution. We're in dire need to at least double the amount of forest we have around the world. And we're not doing that. We're desperately needing to replenish the topsoil we have. We're not doing that. And we're in dire need to have a consumption pattern that is not permanently releasing so much carbon because we're so addicted to coal and so addicted to petroleum. And so what we tried in 1994, between 94 and 97, actually didn't work. When I presented my report in Kyoto in 1997, there were 4 people in the audience. 1 was me. The 3 others were in the wrong room. I mean, there was just absolutely no interest whatsoever to listen to solutions for carbon emissions. Transformations of business models so that instead of being a net emitter of carbon and instead of reducing carbon emissions, everything that we imagined was a net sequestering of carbon. I mean, how could you think differently when you look at the amount of emissions that we've already put into the atmosphere? We're in desperate need in order to dramatically reduce that exhaust. And we're not doing it. We can't even agree on 1.5 degrees. And any statistic we have is exacerbating the limits that we had proposed. Whatever was signed in Paris in 2015 has been totally neglected by everyone, no exception. So, hey, what do you expect?
I think we're just waiting for the catastrophe to happen because, we as a society, I think we are more like instead of being like proactive.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, the guy who's been smoking all life and who's been told that he should stop smoking, only stops smoking when the doctor tells him he got cancer. So when you have the lung cancer and you decide to stop smoking, it's a bit late actually. And I hope that the human being could be a bit smarter than the smoker who stopped smoking late, and that we could at least, imagine that better society instead of going straight through all limits. I mean, it was 42 degrees Celsius in Brussels today. Historic record. Never had 42 degrees. Historic record. June was the hottest month in history of Belgium. The hottest in our history. What is the government doing? We don't even have a government. I mean, we don't even have anyone taking charge. I mean, we're busy politicking so that the Belgian prime minister, outgoing prime minister, becomes the president of the European Union. That we have successfully done. Big deal. So what? And this is where we are suffering from a sense of responsibility. And it's been said so many times before, we are borrowing this earth from our children. We know we are doing that. And still we are expecting the crisis to hit and then change. We can't change. I mean, we have to have what I call a military strategy. Have you done military service?
I have.
You
I haven't.
You will not.
I will not. I'm too old for that now.
I can tell you're 30. I mean, my God, you're way too old for military service.
Thanks for that, by the way.
I have the right to say that at the age of 63. No, what is the military strategy? Military strategy is what I think is the key we need to adopt today in order to get ready for the future. A military strategy means that you never wait till we have the scientific proof that the opposite side attacks to prepare for the army. Because if you're waiting till the other one delivers proof that they are attacking, it's a bit late. So you better prepare.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's something that's called the precautionary principle. When there is a risk that they are attacking, you better get ready to defend yourself. Precautionary principle. When the risk is there that sea levels will be rising to the point, you better get ready for that. That's the precautionary principle. Actually, it's part of the principles of the European Union.
Pretty simple. Sounds simple.
I mean, it's like the dad knows that my daughter is going to go to university, better save some money so I can pay for the university. It's not like, I'm going to wait for the scientific proof that my daughter is registered at university so that I can work out the money. It doesn't work like that. Precautionary principles are key in life. And it's part of the European Union's logic to have precautionary principles. And therefore I'm more amazed than ever before that we are not applying any of the precautionary principles. We pay lip service to them. We say that we think they're important and we will uphold them, but when it comes to climate change, we do absolutely zero. No precaution.
Regarding the theory, what kind of role does it play in the blue economy?
We have two different approaches. One is the research, the science, the philosophy, the no waste, in Japanese the motanai, haikibutsu zero, nothing wasted, everything reused. That's the philosophy. But then the blue economy is the philosophy in action. How do we implement? So we operate on two legs. We have a think tank and we have a do tank. So we have the people who think and we have the people who do. So we have the 3,000 scientists, we have the 1,000 entrepreneurs. And we're continuously monitoring the crazy stuff the entrepreneurs have been able to do. And we're continuously monitoring the crazy ideas the scientists keep on throwing at us. And that dynamics is what makes us quite unique, because we have now 25 years of experience. And what we're offering coming to the table is saying that we have more than 200 initiatives that have worked around the world. Which one would work here? And that is really our very pragmatic approach. We do something that is called a scan. We scan for opportunities. What do we know could work here? And if you agree that these are the opportunities, who are the partners to make it happen from tomorrow on? That's what Zero Foundation is. Which is not one foundation, which is today 34 different organizations across the world.
But who are these scientists? Are they like volunteering for the organization.
Everyone is volunteering, everyone is just dedicated. But the volunteering has, of course, a windfall profit. And the volunteering means that when projects are implemented, of course, the scientists are involved. But there is something much more fundamental that attracts the scientists. We are pioneers and we make things happen that haven't happened before. That means we're the happy providers of original data.
And happy providers of surprises.
And that means that you have doctoral theses with subjects that have never been covered before, with real life information. That is worth a lot for a lot of professors, because we are the implementers, we're the translators. So when 25 years ago we were told you couldn't regenerate a forest in the savanna in Latin America because the topsoil had been completely eroded, and universities were criticizing us and even writing to the United Nations to say that any penny spent on Pauli is a penny wasted. Today, the forest is standing. We have matched the biodiversity of the Amazon forest with a newly generated forest in the savanna, and we've built up the topsoil. And we've proven science wrong. So what is science now interested to do? A few doctoral theses on that. And that is why science is keen, because we've not done it once, we've now done it 200 times, more than 200 times. And it's that capacity to turn the fantasy into the reality where the science says, give me the data. I will monitor, I will prove, I will analyze, I will explain, I will provide you now the hypothesis and the framework conditions to do this more and better. That is the reason why we operate the way we operate. And so, yes, it is volunteering, but it is volunteering with a benefit that is quite clear.
Can I join?
Of course.
As a scientist?
No, as a doer.
As a doer.
I like to do things.
We have two ways, and they're two different cultures. The doers, that's why we have a do tank and we have a think tank. So if you want to do things, then I would say, let's join the team in Riga that's doing solid coffee.
Cool.
For example.
Let's start with that.
I mean, this is very practical. How can you move 10,000 units of this coffee, understanding how it works, and move the product? By doing what? By doing whatever you think you can do best. And so this for us is very important. Some people love to think, reflect, analyze, and that's one culture of life. And the others say, I want to do, like you just said.
Yeah.
And then we just need to mobilize people into teams so that the teams can move forward, rapid, with speed, at scale. That is the Zero Foundation. Next question.
I mean, it's absolutely awesome. Just like to find people who really want to change things.
But they the beauty is they select themselves. I don't have to select anyone. It's just like what happened right now. I want to do that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I will tell you immediately, let's get in touch. And I will be tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, with a team in Riga, and I'll tell them there's a guy who wants to do that. And then he either lives up to his own promise, I will not care. He lives up to his own promise because he promised it himself, not to me. Raised his hand and move. This is how society needs to start acting, instead of saying, now write a business plan.
Yeah. Can I see the business model canvas, for example?
Do you do a strategic analysis for introducing this into the country? Forget about it. Do it. It's never been done before. So the only way to move is by doing. And if everything goes wrong, you don't move. So what have you lost? Nothing. Maybe a couple of months' time. And if it works, what have you done? You created a complete new market. You know, this is how we need to transform society. Have a solid science, have a proof of concept, move. Speed and scale.
To me, it sounds like the best startup scene or ecosystem or incubator in the world that I'm hearing for the first time. So this is really cool. But I understand Mikko has like very serious questions to go over.
I mean, I really want to get into the practicality because, a lot of people talk a lot about theory. There's a lot of theory in the world, but there's not that many doers. So let's just say that I'm a young guy. I'm a 30-year-old guy. I just read your book. I was fascinated by the idea. but where do I start?
But what do you think is possible? I mean, there are hundreds of opportunities described on our website, and you have to start with what you think is possible. And if you write me or any one of my colleagues and say, I think this is possible, I give you a very fair answer. And I will say, no, I don't think it's possible, which is nearly never said. Or I say, you call that person there and agree. This is how it works. We need to put people in touch. I mean, this is how things move. You're here, you're interested, you're motivated, get in touch. And of course, not all on solid chocolate, please, on solid coffee, please. I mean, not all on one. I mean, and this is why I publish more than 120 cases on my website where it is described what each one is doing. Mm-hmm. And if I tell you, well, there are already people in Estonia doing it, he happens to be sitting in the same room as you, but why don't you do it in Finland? I mean, if you happen to have a Finnish girlfriend, maybe that works very nicely. If you don't have a Finnish girlfriend, well, think about something else. But, you need to have that personal connection to know where do you feel that you could get going. And maybe you say, but I don't want to live anymore in Estonia. I would like to go somewhere else. Well, where do you want to go? And then this is the very practical thing. Where is your level of motivation to move? And it have to work with the energy that's there. We called it the wave.
I mean, a lot of times I think even if the person is like willing to change and really wants to change, but there's like no contacts, they really don't know where to start. They don't know the people who are like advocating the blue economy principles, for example.
That's why you write me an email and you will always get an answer. Mm-hmm. I respond to more than 200 emails per day and everyone gets an answer.
Oh, really?
And that's the only way to go. Put people in touch. And with whom? Either with the scientist who explains or with the entrepreneur who says, let's go. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that, nothing works.
I mean, for example, my father runs a small food production company. They manufacture surimi products. And let's just say a hypothetical, I can take over the business in like 5 years and I want to make a change. I want to, domesticate the supply chain and all that. Should I just write to you about it?
The first thing you do is read the book. If you read it, then the first question is, what do you have? Mm-hmm. What is locally available? And you have to start with what is locally available. That I can't figure out for you. That's why you're Estonian, you figured it out in Estonia. But once you say, this is what I have, can we move? Then we will talk. Mm-hmm. But the first analysis has to be made. What do you have? What do you have available? What is there for you? And what do you have one or the other way control of? Mm-hmm.
Basically, just need to think about that. Okay, the surimi is the product that we use to manufacture like crab sticks and so forth. Where does it come from? Like, can I make surimi or can I buy surimi in domestic market? Or
in domestic market or whatever you're transforming today, how you can get more value. Our question is always how to create more value. Our question is not how to be more competitive by being cheaper. Being cheaper doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. Being cheaper is pricing yourself out of the market, is squeezing out workers and the environment. We need to stop thinking like the cheapest and we need to start thinking like one with the highest value. And so that logic and that framework is described in the book. So I'm kind of expecting you know that. But once you know that, then it's a matter of, how do we put it into practice? And that's by working with people who are and have done it. It's the only way it works. I mean, take our mushroom farming. We do the mushroom farming on coffee waste. We have 5,000 farms now. So if anyone says, I would love to learn how to do mushrooms and coffee, I will say, well, talk to Giovanna. She's right here. Don't talk with me. She's trained 500 people across Europe to set up their business to do that. So if you feel a calling, talk to her. Do it. Spend 6 days in their farm, learn how to do it, and come back and do. This is the kind of no-nonsense approach we need. We don't need to say, write a business plan. We don't need to say, do a strategic analysis. I mean, that is over. That's totally over. That only works for markets that are in the hands of a few multinational corporations. But it doesn't work in order to transform society. Can you imagine Spotify would have made a strategic analysis for the music industry? I mean,
They wouldn't get that far.
I mean, when they would have made it, they would have been so disappointed and would have no energy left because the competition was enormous and the threats were tremendous and the other players are. And what happened? They happen to be number one today. Will they keep that position? I don't know, but they are number one today, and they did succeed better than iTunes. How come? Well, because they didn't do strategic analysis. They just moved ahead with what they have in their head.
By the way, what's your favorite business who's implementing the blue economy principles?
I've just talked about it. Mushrooms and coffee.
That's your favorite?
Oh, that's the wildest idea we ever had. Is, you take a cup of coffee, you drink the coffee, you use the waste, you grow a mushroom. The waste of the mushroom is a good feed for chicken, and the chicken gives me an egg. I mean, can we make it more simple? I have coffee, I have mushrooms, I have chickens, and I have eggs. And what did I start with? With the waste of a cup of coffee, which you shouldn't throw on the compost heap, because the poor earthworm is an animal, and an animal will get stressed out from the caffeine. So, surprise, surprise.
That's what I have done for the last 30 years. I just didn't know any better.
Exactly. We're ignorant.
Yeah.
But now you are informed.
A little
and
bit
so
more, yeah.
you're expected not to repeat the mistakes of the past. And as long as you didn't know, it is called an unintended consequence. But the day you know and you continue doing it, it's called a collateral damage.
Yeah. Or just plain ignorance.
No. Once you know, it's not ignorance anymore.
Yeah, you're right about that. If it's okay for you again, I will just like to talk about the fables just a little bit. That's why we're here for.
I think so. That's one of the reasons.
What's the main idea behind those fables? I mean, you have written 365 of those.
I'm not yet at 365. I'm now at 295, but we're moving.
You're moving towards.
We're moving towards 365. What's the goal? The goal is simply to transform completely the educational system into an inspirational system. We inspire them with so many huge, out of this world facts, figures, concepts, ideas, realities. They're so out of the world that kids get so excited. They want to know more about it. And the most important thing today is that kids get excited about something. I mean, they're so bombarded with the bad news that we need to bring them the good news. And the good news is not, I promise you, a safe haven. No. The good news is that you have an opportunity to do these incredible things which your parents think is pure fantasy. But you can do it. And you can surprise your parents with this pure fantasy, because actually it is nothing but reality. That is the objective, is transform the educational system into an inspiration that prepares the kids for the future forever.
But how did you come up with these?
Oh, because I got 6 kids. I have 6 kids myself. I was not happy at all what they were learning at school. I thought what we were learning at school was rubbish. And so therefore I said, how can I actually make a contribution? But as a busy dad, I didn't have more than a couple of minutes a day. And so I thought I better write them a great story. And I am now more convinced than ever that if you can tell a great 3-minute story every day to a child, you will inspire the next generation to transform the world. It only takes 3 minutes. Children don't need lengthy explanations and motivational speeches. They don't need to have out-of-bound exercises in outdoors. I mean, they just need to click. And this is what we're trying to do with the fables, is click.
Now I have a rather philosophical question. Into what world, what kind of environment, and what kind of people would you trust your kids?
In any hands, anytime, because our kids will have to evolve and learn to live with so many different people. So I'm not going to entrust anyone. I'm going to trust my kids. And I hope that I will have given the right resilience for them to be able to handle whatever situation comes up. I will not trust anyone. I'll trust my kids.
What makes you trust them so much?
Because I have challenged them so much. I have created challenges. At least twice a year I'm taken to a place where I have never been in my life, and we'll discover it together without a phone, without Google Maps, without a reservation for the hotel. And this is what we need to do. We need to start trekking again. It's not Star Trek, it is trekking the world without the paraphernalia that we're having today. And if you do that, you give the confidence to the kids, and the kids will take that as a way of life.
I mean, that's a really great way to actually embrace your kids, just to give them room to grow, experience life themselves. I mean, you're a great inspiration regarding that. I don't have kids yet, but I think I imagine when I have, that's the way I would definitely raise them.
The problem with imagination or imagining when you have kids, it's totally different when you actually have one. I had an imagination as well at the time. But when the reality hit me, then I was just actually starting to learn how to, approach my little one. And I'm still learning every day.
When my son, 10 years old now, shows that he's fascinated by salamanders and geckos, I need to take him to a place where he will have to demonstrate his real resilience about learning about it. So I took him just 2 weeks ago, in the midst of the drought in Belgium, I took him to the last little pools of water that were left. And I asked him to see if there are salamanders and geckos. And of course, geckos are not there. They're much more tropical. But the salamanders, he found 9 in one day. Although all the experts in the area who were responsible for the parks said there are no salamanders, it's way too dry. And he went out and found them. He's 10. And why? Because he was so determined to find his salamanders that he would find them. Because if there would have been no salamanders anymore, then they would have been extinct. And he was not ready for that. So he found the salamanders, he found the newts, he found, the amphibians that he was looking for. And of course he found a few frogs in the meantime, and he found a few fishes, but he catched them all. He catched them. And this is what I need to sense. Where is my son's real deep motivation? Is he ready to put on boots and step into the water and go that deep that the boots will fill up with water? Then I know this is my son.
Or go into the cold and experience the
cold. But he needs
survival.
to go through, he needs to follow through with his passions. And I have to facilitate him to go for his passions. That's the role of a father, not to protect him. And he had 162 mosquito bites, which of course required a bit of scratching afterwards.
Cost of doing business, huh?
And this is the price you pay. That's the way it is. But he has pictures for the rest of his life showing the salamanders that he was able to pick up. Were the experts, the experts of the country said there were none. That is how we have to support the children. And then, of course, when I write a fable about a salamander or a newt, he thinks it is absolutely the truth. He's exhilarated about it. We need to create crazy environments for the kids so they can be crazier than they ever thought they could be.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for the inspiration. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to being a father one day and practicing it as well. We have been talking a lot about the concept of the blue economy. Entrepreneurs, children, the need for change. The big influencer on why our situation on Earth is as it is I mean, is politics and decisions made in public sector. Every single strategic document has been created with the aim of making things better. But instead of improvement, we are faced with severe catastrophe. So what would you say to officials who are making the strategic decisions day by day? Have they missed something?
They got to scrap what they've been doing. Simply scrap it. Because the situation, the hard reality of the world is very different than we imagined it even 10 years ago. I mean, I would ask the politicians, do you know the difference between 2D and 3D internet? Do you know the 3D internet could be here within 10 years? And if they haven't heard of the 3D internet, need an explanation, we need to sit down to them and explain what it is. Because otherwise they're going to regulate the past. They're going to audit the past. And they're not going to facilitate the future. They're only going to facilitate changes in the periphery. That is not how we transform society for the better. We do not need to have a little bit better periphery. We need to fundamentally transform and create a platform that allows us to go much beyond what we thought was possible. And that cannot be based on the past. That cannot be based on history. That must be based on a visionary analysis of where science can take us. And only when we have a clarity on that, we should be doing policy making towards innovation and quality of life. Because of course the policymaker has to promise it's for the improvement. Of course. But stuck with so many vested interests and stuck with a reality that is the result of decisions of the past is not taking us to the future. So if the real future is a better future, then we better change the framework under which we're operating. And I have just mentioned the whole issue of the 2D versus the 3D internet, but I can mention the world of plastics. You know, are we able to have a framework whereby all plastics are bio-based, all plastics are 100% bio, and they all are capable of degrading according to its functionality in the sun, in the soil, and in the sea? You know, and if you create that kind of a framework as your policy vision, you're going to completely transform your chemical industry, and you will not have to sit down anymore and strike a deal on the stop of single-use plastics. You don't have to do that anymore. It's over. Because you have clearly agreed in the vision for the future that you want all plastics to be 100% bio, and you want all plastics to be 100% in line with the function that they will perform. That means you cannot have plastics that last for 2,000 half years and only use it for a one-way bottle of plastics. That on top of that is generating the microplastics in your tummy and your liver. So we need to have, on the big issues that are important for society, we need to have very clear statements. Where do we want it to be? And I think if I would stand up in Estonia one day and I would have a television program and say, who would be in favor of having a society where all plastics are 100% bio, there are no additives that are not disclosed. All additives must be fully disclosed. We need to know exactly what is suspected, expected, toxic. And we will want to have all functionality in line with the capacity of the polymer. I think with most of the people that will say, of course, I mean, why would it be anything else? And so we need to have a few big guidelines of that visionary statement. And then when you know that this is part of the wave, that this is what people want and where people stand behind, then you have to put in place the policy making. And hell if this is in favor of a guideline of the European Union, yes or no. We're not here to please the European Union, we're here to design the future of a society that is undergoing an extraordinary stress because we have created conditions that are not at all ready to sustain life for a long time to come.
I mean, we have hundreds of auditors from national audit offices worldwide watching this video. They are the people executing audits on waste issues. What would you say to them?
We have to become so clear in our minds that we have to do everything to finally come in line with what nature is. Nature does not know the concept of waste. Waste is a human invention. We're the only species living on Earth capable of making something no one desires. So let's just focus on having a pathway to eliminate the concept. And that will not be done in 1 or 2 years. That may take 10 or 20 years. But we need to have a clarity that it is absolutely insane that 90% of all raw materials that went into the system end up as waste. Doesn't make any sense. And so we need auditors, we need to have the people who have the clarity of the numbers and who can help us set targets of how to get rid of it. I've been involved in Japan since 1994, and Japan decided in 1995 that by 2020 they will have no more landfills. Japan today has only 2% going to landfills compared to 1995, 2%. And by next year, that 2% will be gone. That is the one kind of thing we need to audit. Are we ready to do a 25-year program to stop sending anything to a landfill? Are we ready? Now, that requires stringent policies. Amongst others, what do we do with all the waste, all the bio-waste that we're having? None of that should ever go to a landfill, certainly not to an incinerator, because all of that should be put back onto the soil. Our soil is depleted. And when we have any big volumes of waste, housing waste is a great component. And that housing waste today in Japan, since there is such a reduction of construction industry, it's half what it used to be 30 years ago. All of these prefabrication centers for houses are now recycling centers of houses. Now, these are very simple decisions that can be made. Our own initiatives have permitted to transform old factories, because we have a lot of waste with what we call stranded assets, old chemical factories that are not competitive anymore. We need to transform them to biofactories. Anything in chemistry works with pressure and temperature, and therefore we can all transfer either a petrochemical or we can transfer a biochemical. It needs the same pressure and temperature differentials. And so therefore what I believe is so key is that we just set very clear targets. Are we ready to go for zero waste? We're not ready, it seems like, politically. Because we have what? We have vested interests. We have people who don't want to change because of the vested interests. Are we ready to just get the numbers on the table and put down a timeline and see where is the highest flexibility and the greatest opportunity in order to transform to a zero emissions and zero waste society? Japan has done it. I'm spending next year half a year in Japan because we're celebrating the fact that Japan moved to zero landfill. Wow, zero. This is visionary. No, it's not visionary. It's a reality. There's no vision anymore. The vision has turned into reality. It did take 25 years, and it did go across every single government that Japan has had, because society supported the concept so broadly that we need to go for zero waste. Japan has no space. Why would you ever reserve space to landfill? And so I think this is where we need audit. We need discipline. Audit allows you to have discipline. Audit allows you to have clear goals. Audit allows you to put an alignment over time to achieve goals and to monitor what you should achieve. And whenever you're off track, that's not a problem. Let's find a way to get back on track and do better.
But why is waste so important to look into?
But waste is a lost resource. When we have the Homo economicus, the one who wants to do more with less, the first thing you do is get rid of your waste. What's the logic of having a cup of coffee when your cup of coffee includes inside your body only 0.2% of what the farmer harvested? 99.8% of what the farmer harvested is wasted, generating methane gas in its decomposition. Doesn't make any sense. At least farm mushrooms in it. At least. And this is where we need to go for. What's the sense of having the Starbucks and all the coffee shops continuously throwing away coffee, waste of coffee we call it, because we're only adding hot water and we're only using the soluble component, and whatever is a solid we throw away, when that is an ideal substrate for mushrooms? Don't we need better quality food? Don't we need to reduce our cholesterol input? Don't we need to increase essential amino acids in the food chain for our children? That means, don't we need mushrooms? Because they're the ones who will have the poly nutrition that we are so desperately needing. Or do we sign up for obesity? Or in diabetes. So that is why we need to start with the very core principle of the blue economy. Use what we have. And what do we have? A lot of waste. Use it. Doing what? Generating value. If I have coffee, mushrooms, chickens, and eggs, that's value. Let's focus on getting value.
And what should the so-called controlling eye of the public sector focus on, and what should they recommend to decision makers?
We need to have an independent body to look at it. You can't leave it in the hands of the decisions who have to respond to government elected officials with vested interests. You need to have independent audit. Without that, you don't have the real numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Pauli.
Have a good evening.